Now is the time to remember that we are all fellow citizens. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we must not criminalize dissent or demonize political disagreement, which is what's been happening in our country lately at a level that nobody has ever seen before.
That is a fact, Jack. That is past president and future president Donald John Trump. The grand finale, the big final night of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin last night, and it was a humdinger. And this is how it finished up, how it wrapped up. We are told President Trump chooses the music. This, a selection of Puccini, Nessun Dorma. What does that mean? No one sleeps. No one must sleep. No one must sleep, like Sleepy Joe. Nessun Dorma. A big deal, to be sure. A beautiful piece, obviously. Great, patriarchal opera. Classical, wonderful. And interesting for a couple of different reasons, the selection of Nessun Dorma. Dorma, sleep, like dormitory. Latin roots and all of that. And the lyrics at the end, where this, I believe, is Luciano Pavarotti. And it ends with, I will win, I will win, I will win. And perhaps more importantly, perhaps, it is the music that was used at the end of a Tom Clancy movie. A movie made from a Tom Clancy book, The Sum of All Fears, where Russians and neo-Nazis steal a nuclear weapon, blow up the football stadium in Baltimore. But the final scene in the movie, The Sum of All Fears, Nessun Dorma, is the musical selection as all of the deep state figures are killed, blown up in their car, throats slashed by an assassin skulking up on them at their desks at night. Now, whether that was a deliberate selection, a deliberate choice, a conscious element in all of this, that is impossible for me to say. But an interesting coincidence nonetheless, and I think the left, I don't know if they're already panicking at MSDNC, and at CNN they usually are, often over their own gender choices and things like that. But The Sum of All Fears and Nessun Dorma by Puccini, a remarkable ending to a remarkable 4 days, 4 separate themes on the 4 separate days, and Make America Great once again was last night's theme, and a really remarkable night. President Trump's speech, which was the longest speech ever given at a political convention in American history at least, and it beat out Bill Clinton's longest speech. Bill Clinton's speech was not very well received, though, at his convention, when he had what was previously the longest speech ever delivered at a political convention. He was booed off the stage by his own crowd, by the Democrats at the Democrat convention, with Bill Clinton going on and on and on. And then he finally said, and in conclusion, and the crowd went wild and cheered, like, finally, shut up. But that was not the case last night. President Trump had the crowd eating out of his hand. And it was kind of a tale of two speeches. Truth be told, it's been observed already by a lot of people, but his speech started out with one tone, and then he kind of got into the crowd, and the crowd was getting into him. And, you know, President Trump is with his crowds, and on how President Trump's crowds are with him. All kinds of interesting interaction, but a lot of great stuff. He talked about God. He talked about the assassination attempt less than a week ago. Honestly, it's a week ago tomorrow, the assassination attempt. And this is kind of wackadoodle-doo and unsurprising at the same time. About a third of Democrats believe that it's a big conspiracy theory and that it was fabricated, the assassination attempt. They don't believe it. A poll showing that Democrats, they have so little faith, don't they, in anything. And they believe that everything's a lie, in large part, I think, because they're lied to so frequently, and they seem to like it. You know, as Elena Gorakova of the Soviet Union wrote in her book, A Mountain of Crumbs, the rules are simple. They lie to us. We know they're lying. They know we know they're lying, but they keep lying to us, and we keep pretending to believe them. That's one of the bedrock principles of the Democrat Party in 2024. The big lie. They know it's the big lie, but they choose to believe it anyway because a lot of mental illness going on out there. Honestly, they talked about it years ago. We didn't listen to them. Turns out it was a cry for help, that whole Obamacare thing. We need more mental health help. We're like, yeah, whatever. Little did we know they were talking about themselves. Remarkable things. So it was quite a night last night, and really the last 4 nights. And it was a great, well-organized, well-executed, if you will, 4-day political convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Very little in the way of riots. They had their Jew haters show up. You know, they're neo-fascist, Nazi, anti-Israel, River to the Sea Democrats. In a mob, they showed up. There was one Democrat arrested with a ski mask and gloves and an AK-47. I think it was 95 degrees in Milwaukee. And a mini AK-47 in his backpack. He was arrested by the police, who the Democrats want to defund because they're in favor of the guy with the AK-47, which they say they want to ban. Remarkable things. And I've got a question for you because there's a lot to talk about. But here's a question I've got for you. And just talking to my best girl this morning over our porridge. We weren't really having porridge, but over, breakfast and some boiled eggs and some orange juice and good stuff. And my best girl whipped up a wonderful morning once again because it's great to be an American, even with the crazy Democrats out there, because things are looking pretty good right now. But here's a query for you. That's a query is like a question, but it's a funnier word. And here's the query. If the assassin's bullet had been 2 inches farther to the right, or if President Trump had leaned back instead of turning right, and everything was completely different right now, if we had the Zapruder film from last Saturday instead of what we have with a perforated ear on President Trump and a lot of blood, if that had ended differently, would the Democrats still be looking to get rid of Joe Biden? Or would they be holding on to Joe Biden? It's a more or less academic question at this point, but the front page above the fold, not their lead story. Their lead story today is not Trump fires up a GOP he has transformed. That's their number 2 story on the front page. Their number 1 story on the front page of the Washington Post today is roiled by doubt and division, top Democrats renew push to replace Biden. But you see, if the assassin's bullet had just been a couple of inches to the right last Saturday, 6 days ago now, not quite 6 days ago, it'll be 6 days ago in the 6 p.m. hour tonight, would the Democrats still be looking to get rid of Joe Biden? Because the Republican Party would be the party in chaos looking for a replacement candidate. And would the Democrats still, or would they just be happy with the sock puppet they have? That's kind of a fun and crazy question, isn't it? Yes, sir. Because it was, the difference between night and day, between history taking this course versus that course. The difference was a difference of 2 inches and a sniper's bullet 6 days ago. But I did think that the Puccini music to close out and the parallel to the Sum of All Fears movie where the deep state fascist communists were being killed, neo-Nazis and Russians were being killed for their role in a surreptitious plot to create global war. Interesting selection. President Trump apparently a big opera fan, and who's not a fan of Puccini, honestly? Better than Cardi B even. Well, some would say better than Cardi B, but who can say? So there's a lot to talk about. Also, there's more because, as I said, the lead story, the Washington Post, we've got will Joe Biden stay or will Joe Biden go? Because, as I think you know, if he goes, there will be trouble, and if he stays, there will be double. It's a remarkable time to be alive and watching what's going on in the world. The Washington Post also on the front page has the headline, "At Milwaukee Barber Shop, a tapered faith in politics." And you know what that is? Because, these white reporters, they love to go to black barbershops because that movie, Barbershop, and they talk about the barbershop in Milwaukee, in the heart of the North Side neighborhood of Bronzeville. And they went in there to talk to the African-American people because, the Democrats, being the party of slavery, they've got the black vote locked up, and they need to keep it. Otherwise, they're permanently in the wilderness, which makes a lot of sense. Also, the Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter, who was kidnapped by Putin, who's a communist, don't let anybody tell you any different, and kidnapped Evan Gershkovich, and he's threatening to put him in prison. Today is sentencing. That's expected to happen while we are on the air. Sentencing, and will he get 18 years in prison, or will Putin preemptively let him go because he's afraid of Trump? Also, Trump last night said that to Hamas, you guys will let the American hostages go by the time I'm sworn in, or else. And that is a kind of a carryover from Ronald Reagan in 1980, 1981, when the Iranians were holding, at that point, 52 American hostages. And by the time Inauguration Day rolled around, 444 days. And the President Trump worldview is a lot different than the Joe Biden worldview. In fact, Joe Biden doesn't really have a worldview. Remarkable stuff. Also, we've got a crazy computer outage around the world. Microsoft and crowdsourced with a crazy outage that I think Boston's Logan Airport is shut down. Airports in Europe shut down. It's a global thing. And they're saying, oh, no, there's no foul play here. This is just a glitch. It's a software issue. But the problem is there's no reason that we should believe what they're saying because there are a lot of Democrats among them, and they lie all the time. If they're talking, they're lying. Amazing things going on. And so, scratching the surface on some of the things we want to get to today, we remain at 888-630-9625. And welcome to Friday, ladies and gentlemen. The headlines from the Associated Press: Trump urges unity after assassination attempt while proposing sweeping populist agenda in RNC finale. It's a finale. You got to throw in a little more Italian in there. Fact-checking Donald Trump's RNC speech on immigration, the economy, world affairs, and more. ABC News. Joe Biden, he's the burning bush of truth at ABC News because they got their lead guy is George Stephanopoulos. He's a Clinton administration official. The Democrat Party has stolen the media. And the media is fine with that because they're all sleeping with each other, and they think that's just kosher. It's a kosher dog on a kosher bun. Remarkable stuff. NBC News went to do a live hit from the floor of the Republican National Convention while the opening prayer was being read. And they did it on purpose. The anchor said, well, they're starting with the opening prayer. Let's go to our dim-witted reporter on the floor to start talking loudly and see how that goes. Yes, sir. And MSNBC, I told you about this already, but MSDNC, they've been doing their shows from New York City. Rachel Maddow and those people. But they've got a backdrop behind them that makes it look like they're in a skybox at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee because they lie even in silence. And even Jake Tapper, a former Democrat Capitol Hill staffer and Monica Lewinsky dater, made fun of them, saying, well, we're actually here in Milwaukee and we're live. You know, didn't want to be shown up by all of that. So we got some of that. And the media very upset because President Trump's campaign hasn't put out an official medical report on his being shot in the ear on the assassination attempt. Of course, they're not asking for Joe Biden's mental assessment or his health assessment because they're Democrats and not journalists. You know how that goes. Yes, sir. Yeah, and I love this Blue Anon. There's QAnon. The Democrats have their own conspiracy site called Blue Anon. Now, is that BLEW or BLUE? I always forget. And 1/3 of Democrats believe conspiracy theory that Trump staged the assassination attempt. Sure. Joe Biden, he may not be employed for very long one way or the other because of the Democrats. You know how that is. And lots more. Stay right there. We're at 888-630-9625. So many parts moving in our political world and in our culture, our societal world. You see the Muslim riots in England yesterday and last night. They're losing it. It's not going to be England for long. The jihad is there. And the jihad is here. We call them Democrats. Right now, let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Teresa calling from Olney, Maryland. Teresa, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. So I wanted to mention, I don't know if you follow on social media Dan Scavino. He is amazing. I've been following him since 2015, and he always plays Puccini and Pavarotti, specifically when Trump is traveling, getting on his plane. And I always feel so hopeful in Dan's posts. I continue to follow him, and I encourage people to follow him because there's always something. I think there's something truly meaningful in his posts, and with the music specifically, that the Puccini and Pavarotti, and I think that there is definitely something to that he played last night.
Well, it's great, powerful, emotional music. It has the music always has a story behind it. It represents the apex of Western civilization, which is under assault today by, the left and other barbarians. The Democrats are so insane. There was a lot of talk, even on CNN, with the communist Van Jones, saying, boy, this is the most positive, the most extraordinary convention that I've seen since Barack Obama in 2008, because they worship him as though he is a god. They have no God. They killed God. So, as Voltaire said, if God did not exist, since they killed him, he doesn't exist to them. It would be necessary to create him, and that's what they've done. And they have after-school Satan Club, but they worship David Hogg and Greta Thunberg and, of course, Barack Obama. And Van Jones on CNN was worshiping at the altar, throwing him off a little bit at CNN. I'm sorry, I just threw Michael for a loop there, going across the countertop here in the studio. But Van Jones on CNN, and they're lamenting that the convention was so positive and so filled with energy, positive energy.
This whole thing is like this. And hey, guys, the last time I was in a convention that felt like this was Obama 2008. Yeah, there's something happening where...
You just wrote a headline, by the way.
What's that?
You just wrote a headline with that comment.
Just like Obama, Trump is showing in this convention he has the capacity to alter the composition of the electorate. That is
the difference between 2008 and now is that Obama was actually popular outside of his own party, and that's not the case.
Hey, he was popular with the Communist Party in China and the Communist Party in North Korea and the Communist Party in Moscow and the Daniel Ortega. He was popular in Cuba. He was, popular among organized criminals in Mexico. Yeah, he was popular outside of the party. That's the thing about them. Just amazing stuff. And then there was who was the other nitwit on Phil Mattingly on CNN also, who was they're distressed, they're distraught by the fact that the Republican convention had a good vibe, had a good feel. Everybody was happy, and they were very positive. And, last night, it was 5 days after Donald Trump was shot at a rally in Pennsylvania by a 20-year-old lunatic, and there are still a lot of questions that need to be answered about all of that, rooftops and local police and Secret Service and all kinds of questions that have yet to be answered about all of that because, it's 2024 and we don't answer questions very well. But the news media very distraught with the positive nature of the 4-day Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They're traumatized by it. Even Van Jones, man, when I was worshiping at the altar of Barack Obama, was the last time I felt this sexually aroused at a political event because they're all mental, completely nuts. Let's go to soundbite number 4. President Trump from last night. And again, I've got, this is a serious question. If the bullet had been 2 inches to the right 6 days ago on Saturday, if President Trump had turned this way instead of that way, and we had a radically different outcome, would the Democrats still be looking to get rid of Joe Biden? And when they're getting rid of Joe Biden, then they've got another issue, and that is, how do you solve a problem like Kamala, right? Just to keep in with the Sound of Music thing. How do they solve a problem like Kamala? Because she does worse against Trump in many polls, and the Democrats, all they care about is power, and therefore the polls. And they were hopeful, and again, I want to get to this, but the blue anon conspiracy-minded Democrats, and 1/3 of Democrats have convinced themselves that the assassination attempt 6 days ago was a big fake. What do they call it at the White House, Michael? Cheap fake. It's a cheap fake. That's what they're saying. And that they brought in a vial of fake blood or something, and it was all staged. And that's because of the rampant mental illness that is loose in the Democrat Party. But let's go to soundbite number 4. President Trump last night, his speech, 92 minutes or 93 minutes, the longest convention nominating speech apparently in the history of the country, beating out at long last Bill Clinton's extra long convention speech all those years ago. President Trump last night, as he was starting off, and he started off very strong and was focused, and he was calm, cool, and collected. He was thanking God. I think he feels like he's on borrowed time at this point, that it all could have come to an end 6 days ago, last Saturday in Pennsylvania. President Trump last night in Milwaukee.
Let me begin this evening by expressing my gratitude to the American people for your outpouring of love and support following the assassination attempt at my rally on Saturday. As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened, and you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell.
The Democrats have ginned up yet another conspiracy theory. They are the radical left-wing, anti-child, anti-baby, anti-capitalist, anti-American, anti-truth party. And they're the party of wild-eyed conspiracies, Russian collusion and Hillary Clinton's phony dossier that was filled with a lot of bourgeois. And, of course, the laptop. It's Russian disinformation. Everybody's a Russian. You know that they're in bed with the Russians because they can't stop talking about the Russians. And again, ending with Puccini last night and the sum of all fears. More Russians in there, too. And neo-Nazis, just like all these Jew-hating Democrats. They got conspiracy theories about the Israelis being the problem and not the radical Islamic jihadi, the genocidal death cult that is Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran. The Democrat Party is very unwell. And now they have a massive conspiracy theory surrounding the attempted assassination of Donald Trump last Saturday, not yet a week ago, and wild-eyed conspiracies running rampant in the Democrat Party because of their severe mental illness. President Trump wanted to tell the story last night at the convention.
I began speaking very strongly, powerfully, and happily because I was discussing the great job my administration did on immigration at the southern border. We were very proud of it. Behind me and to the right was a large screen that was displaying a chart of border crossings under my leadership. The numbers were absolutely amazing. In order to see the chart, I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet.
And he did, and I've been talking about this, and you've seen it yourself. Within 1 second, he crouched down, he dropped down, recognizing that there was an attack going on.
There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that.
It was quite a moment as he's telling the story. It really was, and he was clearly emotional. He said he wanted to tell the story once and then never tell the story again.
The amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would not be here tonight. We would not be together.
And that is a straight up fact. No denying that, unless you're a Democrat, of course, and then you can deny the sky is blue and the earth is round.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Yeah. Thank you. But I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God.
At that point, you knew the media would attack him for mentioning God because they don't mention God. They don't believe in God. They reject God. They have after-school Satan club, but that's as close as they get to religion. They insist very often that that is their religion because, they're Democrats. And boy, they're not like normal people. Democrats used to be more like normal people, but they cut that out a long time ago.
Watching the reports over the last few days, many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was. When I rose surrounded by Secret Service, the crowd was confused because they thought I was dead. And there was great, great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. They didn't know I was looking out. They thought it was over. But I could see it, and I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight."
This makes the Democrats wet themselves, too. Oh, no, and not fight, fight, fight.
Thank you.
Democrats at home cowered behind furniture when that moment happened at the convention. They ran for cover. And some of them got their AK-47s and were looking for someone to attack. Remarkable stuff. President Trump.
In almost all cases, as you probably know, and when even a single bullet is fired, just a single bullet, and we had many bullets that were being fired, crowds run for the exits or stampede, but not in this case. It's very unusual.
Very, very unusual.
This massive crowd of tens of thousands of people stood by and didn't move an inch. In fact, many of them bravely but automatically stood up looking for where the sniper would be. They knew immediately it was a sniper, and then began pointing at him. You can see that if you look at the group behind me. That was just a small group compared to what was in front. Nobody ran, and by not stampeding, many lives were saved.
Many lives were saved. One man was killed, and he actually brought the uniform of the firefighter killed, his firefighter uniform, brought it out on stage, on a stand in a hangar. He went over and addressed the crowd and talked about the firefighter that was murdered that day by the would-be assassin, who was then shot in the head by a U.S. Secret Service counter sniper. President Trump last night, he was, not just completely the regular old-fashioned Donald Trump. There was a difference. He was a changed Donald Trump.
Now is the time to remember that we are all fellow citizens. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we must not criminalize dissent or demonize political disagreement, which is what's been happening in our country lately at a level that nobody has ever seen before.
President Trump. And he was on teleprompter for part of the time, and then he started riffing and going off prompter, and he doesn't need a prompter. Joe Biden needs a prompter, and he can't do that either. They certainly don't want him to go off prompter, Joe Biden, because his brain is a problem. But a lot of remarkable moments last night. I'll be sharing more of them with you. And then there's our news media, isn't there? 888-630-9625. Now, the Democrats and the media are calling it Plan B for Joe Biden. I guess it's Plan Biden. And they call it Plan B. When they get rid of Biden, who would take his place? It's Plan B is one of their favorite abortion pills. So this is kind of Plan B is like the presidential abortion. They're going to abort Joe Biden at the age of 81. That seems a little late. Talk about a late-term abortion. That's 81 years old. That's pretty late, I got to say. All right, I'm going to get back to Plan B for Joe Biden. And will it be Kamala? Let's go to Mike the Lib, because Mike the Lib called in. Mike the Lib, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Chris.
Get your phone under control there, Mike the Lib. It's in your hand, talking to put one end goes to your ear.
Okay, can you hear me, Chris?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, fine. Basically, the Secret Service totally screwed up. They should have never let Trump get on the stage when they had an unresolved security situation. I was wondering if the Secret Service actually informed Trump of this situation. That's never been asked. of the Secret Service.
And nothing's been asked. They haven't had a press conference of any kind, so not a single question has been asked.
They say, yeah, but that's one that should be asked. The other one was when after they were told by local law enforcement they couldn't cover that building. They should have released some of the local law enforcement that was inside the security perimeter to go to the outside and cover that building, because it made absolutely no sense to leave that gap open. If they were so concerned about steep roofs, because of police, they could have asked the local volunteer fire company to put people up there. All you needed to have was binoculars and two-way radio to basically deter them,
and maybe a gun.
No, you wanted to have a gun up there. You didn't need to have a gun.
I mean, a police officer, he should have a gun.
Yes, but if you didn't have a police officer, you had a local fire company up there, they wouldn't need to have
maybe a social worker. You could send
they should have at least talked to the suspect beforehand. A suspicious person, they would have had a chance to talk to them. This probably would never have happened. He took this assassination as a physics problem, it appeared, and he was trying to figure out how to do it. So if they would have basically had intervention and knew they were on their radar, he would probably have never done anything. But it was a lack of secret service, not having people out there and defending that building, which was a clear threat.
Are you skydiving right now, or are you? Did you just jump out of an airplane?
No, Chris, I didn't jump out of an airplane.
So are you eating your phone? Are you having McBreakfast?
Okay, go ahead to scream, Chris. Okay, you can't hear.
Well, you can speak clearly into the phone like an adult.
I am speaking clearly in the phone, Chris.
Liberalism isn't what it used to be, is it, Mike the Lib?
Well, Chris, this is a screw-up by the Secret Service and the local police.
Yeah, I think that's probably, that's a popularly held view, to be sure. A lot of questions yet to be answered. Maybe they should have a press conference.